It's time for Play It Safe at 6, your hour-long resource for community issues and expert interviews. You have a voice right here on AM 690, FM 94.3, The Answer. And now, here's your host, Gina Crabtree.
Aloha Monday, everybody. How's it going? Did you guys have a good weekend? I know I did. I'm a little still sunburnt from going to the beach. Hopefully things are going to open up soon. I don't know how much more my skin can take of being outside. But, you know, I always like to say that I have the answers right here on AM 690, FM 94.3, The Answer. And I have an expert interviewer who is going to give us more answers on life, everyday lessons, every day, if you will. So on the phone with me is David McBee. Author, speaker, trainer, educator, traveler, family man, and, lover of barbecue. David, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I love that description. And you actually have that in your LinkedIn. And if anyone wants to check on me, his LinkedIn is at David McBee. So please go check him out. Follow him. This man has a lot of great answers and advice for you for everyday lessons. And we'll get into why you have those in just a minute. So I have actually come across this gentleman 3 different times in my life. So this is going to be your introduction. You ready?
Yeah. So
you were originally the trainer for our digital tactics for Salem Media Group, correct? You work for Simplify Digital.
That's right.
Okay, so that was the first little instance where we met. You did our training videos. We got to see you a lot. And then you went above and beyond and literally followed everyone you taught on LinkedIn. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I do that.
That's super cool. So I was like, all right, so now this guy is staying connected. And then I actually put your training into fruition, and I was doing some social media for a bank and needed a picture on Adobe stock photo and came across a photograph you had submitted. And I actually used that photograph to help further my client's digital path. So that was kind of cool, too. And
that's a fun little hobby. I just take a lot of photos, and I figure I could share them with the world.
Oh, I love it. So I used that. It helped one of my clients. I used your training technique. So now the third go around was because we are LinkedIn followers. You have a children's book that you just released, and this is not your first one. So congratulations on the release of your second book, DJ's Off-Road Adventures. That's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about this series, this DJ's Off-Road Adventure series, and specifically DJ Faces His Fear. Let's get into the plot of this book, because I think the tie-in is really neat.
Well, let me start by saying that I never had any intention of being a children's book author. That was never on my list of things I wanted to do, and it just kind of snuck up on me. But when I have a creative moment, I kind of listen to that. I believe that that's maybe even divinely inspired. So I try to pay attention to those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's what happened. A friend of mine, well, he wasn't even a friend. He was just a guy that I ran into at the Jeep store where I was getting some new tires on my Jeep. And he came out and he said, "Is that your Jeep back there?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you want to go to my wedding?" I was like, "What?"
What?
I know. It's very strange for a total stranger to invite you to his wedding, right? And he explained that he was getting married at the top of a mountain in Colorado. Only Jeeps could make it up to the top because the trail was kind of hectic, and he needed somebody to help get the photographer up to the wedding.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so suddenly I got invited, and I'm like, all right, sounds like fun. So we did that. We went to the top of the mountain. It was great. I'm not afraid of heights, but I am a little afraid of shelf roads. You know what I mean by shelf road? I
do not.
So it's the roads that you drive around on in the mountains. Maybe it's a switchback or whatever, but it's a long drop on the side of the road, right? So standing there, I'm fine. Going to the top of a mountain, I'm fine. Top of a building, airplane, none of that bothers me. But driving on those roads,
it sounds like the road to Hana. To be honest, I think that's what we probably think it's very close to. And anyone who's had to take a Jeep because the rental car companies won't let you go to the top of Mauna Kea without a Jeep. So I think we have some understanding. Go ahead.
Yes, perfect. So anyway, after the wedding, we went out to Moab, Utah, which is like the Jeep playground of the world, right? And he took me on this trail, and I discover I'm on this thing called it's called a fin. It's kind of like, if you can imagine, like a giant sandworm coming out of the desert, right? And it's about a 70-foot drop on the right, and it's about a 70-foot drop on the left. And the road that I'm on, it's not a road, it's like a giant rock. It's tilty and crooked, and it's only about 12 feet wide. And I had the ultimate panic attack. I couldn't breathe. I'm getting anxious just now, just describing it, right? Because reliving it is almost the same thing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't feel my hands. I put the car in park. I was like calling the guys on the radio. I'm like, I can't do this, guys. I can't do this. Like, it's tilty on the left, tilty on the right. They got out of their cars, their Jeeps. They walked over to me, and they kind of calmed me down. They walked me over the edge of this, not over the edge, like they got me through the obstacle, right? They spent the next couple of days kind of babying me and taking care of me, and I got a little bit braver, and I had the best time I'd ever had, driving around the desert and in the mountains in my Jeep. And I got home, and I started telling people that story, and somebody said, well, that's a good life lesson. That sounds like the little engine that could.
Right.
And I was like, aha. So I decided to go ahead and put together a storyboard of the little Jeep, a little off-road vehicle that goes to Moab. He's scared, and his friends help him overcome his fears, and he earns this badge of courage to show that he did it and all that kind of thing. And that was the creation of DJ's Off-Road Adventures.
Oh, my goodness. So as my listeners out there are probably like, okay, children's book, I get it. You know, Dr. Seuss, Oh, the Places We'll Go. You're given that at graduation. And some children's books have great lessons. But how many of us out there, you know, we let fear dictate our life, especially now. How afraid are we to go outside, to even see our family, to go do things we're used to doing? I mean, how are you teaching kids to address fear? I feel like this book is going to help people.
I feel like it has. A lot of people have told me that they were afraid to do some of the exact same things or similar things, and that the book helped them get past that. In fact, one of my friends even sent me a video of her little boy. He was afraid to do something, but she got video footage of him saying, well, I'm going to face my fear just like DJ.
Oh, cute.
That's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. So give us some advice as adults, as typically working adults, some in leadership roles, some that are just trying to get by to the next day. You know, how can we as adults address fear? I like what you said in your podcast. So will you share that with us?
Right. So fear or anxiety creates the exact same conditions in your body as excitement, right? I talked about like breathing fast or losing the feeling in my hands, right? Like if you're extremely excited about something, those are very similar reactions that your body has. So one of the things that I have learned is that when I'm experiencing anxiety and fear, I can kind of reframe it. I can say to myself, hey, this isn't anxiety because I'm scared. This is excitement because I'm on this mountain and I'm out here with my friends and I'm doing something that most people don't even dream about doing. And so you kind of trick your brain into thinking that you're not afraid, but that you're excited, and it makes it easier to overcome that fear.
And are you giving the same advice to kids? I mean, obviously through this book, and you are a parent. I mean, how can we kind of translate that for a child to understand?
So I have two children. One of them's 21, so he's not a child anymore. But I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she experiences some anxiety with certain things, right? And maybe it's going to a dance, or maybe it's the trying out for the marching band, or whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I told her the same thing that I just shared with you. I said, when you're feeling that anxiety, when you're really, really nervous about what you're about to try and do, just reframe it and say, hey, this isn't fear. This isn't anxiety. I'm excited to try out for the marching band. I'm excited to go to this dance or ask this boy out, or whatever the case might be, right? And so I think that is true for adults, for teenagers, even a small child who's afraid to get on the skateboard or the bike, right? You can help them reframe that and tell them, hey, it's exciting to learn to drive a bike. And even if you fall down and scrape your knees, that's part of the experience. But be excited to do something new. And frankly, this is the key, right? Like that moment when you overcome fear, you feel more alive than you do on a regular basis. You feel so much. I bungee jumped during spring break when I was in college, right? I was the guy that took 10 minutes to finally jump. I would never do it again, and it wasn't even that fun. But the fact that I did it made me just feel so amazing and so alive and so proud of myself for overcoming the fear and accomplishing the goal.
Well, we got to take a break, but you know what I think we should do when you go back to your description that you have on your social media? You need to add in adrenaline junkie. I feel like that's something you're very much missing, bungee jumping and off-roading. You certainly have an exciting life, but we're going to keep it locked right here. We got to go keep the lights on AM 690, FM 94.3, The Answer, but we have more answers and life tips when we get back.
We'll be right back with more answers and tips on how you can play it safe as we strive for a happier and healthier Hawaii.
Mom, Dad.
Before you throw out those unused medicines, just think for a minute.
Grandma, Grandpa, all you guys take meds. That's why you gotta dispose of your old pills correctly.
Those pills for your back pain or migraines.
When you throw them in the trash, those medicines can become lethal in the wrong hands. Our hands.
You may be finished with that medicine,
but those pills are making me real popular at school.
My brother James could think they're candy. Our dog loves to get in the garbage, and those meds can make him sick or worse.
So stop. There are better ways to dispose of your unused meds.
There are lots of police stations, local pharmacies, and hospitals that are approved to take in unused meds and dispose of them safely.
Disposal sites are close by.
It's easy, and it's the right thing to do. For us. The ones you love.
To find a medicine disposal site near you, visit www.safe.pharmacy. A public service message from the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy.
And now back to Play It Safe at 6 with Gina Crabtree on AM 690, FM 94.3, The Answer.
Thank you so much for sticking with me this Monday at 6 p.m. And if you missed any of this episode or any past episodes, please feel free to visit my podcast. Oh, yes, I have a podcast at theanswerhawaii.com. Click the on-air tab and go to the program guide. Same place, same time, Mondays at 6 p.m. You can check it out. Now, we are in the middle of chatting with author, speaker, trainer, educator, wait for it, traveler, family man, and lover of barbecue. And I just added adrenaline junkie in the past episode, David McBee. Thank you so much for sticking with us.
Thanking me? Yes, of course.
Yes, yes. So we were just chatting about your second children's book that you released in the series of DJ's off-road adventures. This one is called DJ Faces His Fears, right? And
actually, DJ Faces His Fears was the first book. That's the one we described. And then the one that just launched a couple of weeks ago is called DJ's Off-Road Adventures Better Together. It's all about teamwork.
Oh, goodness, I had them. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about Better Together in just a minute. So thank you for clarifying. But I want to go into something that I think helps bring fear, right? You have a background in digital media, social marketing, using the web, using these social feeds that all of us are visiting multiple times on a daily basis. Do you feel in that expertise that the digital world is enhancing societal fears?
Yeah, I think anyone would agree with that, right? There's just so much information and misinformation that's floating around on social media that people are definitely more afraid now than they ever have been, in my opinion.
And to not necessarily let that hinder, living life and going out and changing that fear into excitement like you had mentioned. I just wanted you to speak on that a little bit and how, we need to possibly take digital media and the web with a grain of salt, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, in my own podcast, we do several episodes on how dangerous and toxic social media can be. And maybe a detox is a way to go, or like you said, just take it for what it is. It's a lot of people's opinions It's a lot of misinformation, kind of facts or half facts, The other day, somebody said something to me about how there's no flu anymore. Oh, well, what happened to the flu, right? I was
Right.
like, where is the flu? Like, what's going on? Is there some kind of conspiracy about this virus and the flu and all this, right? And then my wife pointed out to me that a friend of hers had gotten sick. They gave her a COVID test. She didn't have COVID. She wanted a flu test, but they wouldn't even give her a flu test. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe that's where the flu went. I don't even know, right?
I know. I tell people there was sickness before, there will be sickness after. It is not just based around this pandemic that everyone's so focused on, but with all the media attention and all the social media attention, it's kind of inundating almost. And I think that brings out even more fear than is necessary. So I love the first book, the lesson behind, facing your fear and making it excitement. Let's talk about your second book then, DJ's Off-Road Adventure, Better Together. Can you give us a little synopsis of the plot on that one?
This one's much easier. Really, I was just out off-roading with my friends, and we had a couple of calamities. One guy's Jeep fell in a hole that was as big as a dinosaur's footprint, and we all helped him get out of the hole by climbing on the Jeep and shaking until we could move it. And then we were trying to get up another obstacle, an obstacle in Moab called Hell's Gate. And a couple of the Jeeps went right up it, and one of the Jeeps just couldn't do it to save their life. So, of course, we attached a winch to it and pulled it up. And I thought, man, if you were out here alone, you'd really be in trouble if something like this happened. It's really better that we're together. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I got a second book idea.
Do your friends know how influential they are for your success right now?
They do. And, in fact, I named the characters after them. I put little Easter eggs in the book that show my respect and love for them. So, yeah, they're a big part of it. They haven't asked for any of the profits yet, but there aren't a lot of profits yet. So,
well, that's our job. So, lessons in teamwork, preparation, kindness, just basic good things to teach children and for adults to have a little reminder, right? Especially this day and age. Be kind to people. You just don't know their story sometimes.
Exactly. Pay it forward. When someone does something kind for you, pay it forward. That's in the book. One of the little characters who isn't really very strong and she's not able to help some of the other characters, they run across a character who ran out of gas. And she's like, hey, it's my turn to help. I can give her some gas. So little things like that.
That's sweet. And, my son was in the car, thank goodness, when this happened. But have you ever been in a drive-thru and the person ahead of you pays for your bill? And then you're like all warm and fuzzy. Yeah. And you're like, oh, it's the best feeling in the world. And then you're like, oh, but wait, I can't let it stop there. Like, how much of a jerk would I be if I'm like, okay, cool, free food. So we had to look behind us. And of course, up front, we have the cute little Beamer. We only have one child in the car. We look back, there's a minivan. And we're like, it's cool. We're good. We're going to take it. We're going to pay it forward. Keep the cycle going. Hopefully there's not like a Mack truck behind that one, but it is a McDonald's drive-thru. So it gives you that kind of warm fuzzy where you're like, that for 20 minutes just made me feel like the world was a better place.
I don't know where I read it, but somewhere along the line I read that one of the keys to happiness, one of the things that makes people happier than anything else, is simply doing something kind for someone else. And we just don't remember that. We don't realize that we can selfishly want to feel really good, and by helping another person, we can fulfill that desire in ourselves.
Oh, and these are everyday lessons, which is my next segue to your other book, your adult version, so to speak, of your DJ's Off-Road Adventures, I would think. It's called Everyday Lessons Every Day. So you want to talk to us a little bit about, what inspired you to put that book together and where that takes us from a standpoint of motivation and just remembering these simple things in life to help everyone be happier?
Yeah, well, the story behind this book is a little less happy. I was letting my career really kind of take over and spending a little less time and energy on my relationships with my wife and my two kids, and maybe neglecting them a little, maybe being a little short-tempered, anxious. I would even go so far as to say angry. And they were kind of walking on eggshells around me. I mean, everything irritated me. My daughter, a teenager, leaves her lights on. Every teenager leaves their lights on, right? And most dads go in, they flip the light switch off, maybe they nag a little bit. Do you know what I did? I took every light out of her room.
Goodness.
I stole her light bulbs. I was so fed up. I was like, who does that? Like, I had gone too far. I'd gone over the edge, right? And I was leaving for a trip to go out of town for work, and my whole family was sitting at the kitchen table, and I was like, bye, guys. And they said, bye, Dad. Barely looked at me. I think they were kind of relieved that they were going to have 3 or 4 days without the monster walking around.
Mm.
And I got on the plane, and I just kind of had a moment. I was like, they hate me. They're going to be happier without me for a few days, and I don't want to lose them. I gotta make some changes. And ever since my early 20s, I've been a reader of self-improvement. I knew what to do. I had just not dug into those lessons in so long. So I decided to start reading self-improvement books every day. That's the title of the book, Everyday Lessons Every Day. And so every day I would read these books and I would learn these lessons, and then I would implement them in my life, and I would sit back and watch the improvements. I would see things take place, and I'd be tested with something that made me furious or angry, and I'd be like, it's okay. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so this guy's driving in the left lane, and I have to pass him on the right. Normally that would make me crazy, but I was reading and I was learning about myself, and I just realized it's so dumb to put the effort into that, right? And so the book, Everyday Lessons Every Day, it's not a self-help book. It may not help you or any reader. It's a self-help book in that it helped me selfishly. It was my journey from grumpy to grateful.
Oh, I
and
like
so after
that.
About 6 months, after about 6 months of implementing these lessons every single day, I found that I had changed. The monster was gone, or at least pressed down deep, and he occasionally rears his head now and then. But my relationships all improved. I'm convinced that if I had stayed on that path, I would have lost my wife. So I am so grateful that I took this journey, and I hope people can learn from it. I hope they'll pick up the book and learn the lessons and improve their own relationships and possibly save their own marriages.
I love that. From grumpy to grateful. That's a tagline. You can use that. I mean, you thought of it, so obviously, but I like that. So where can we find your books? I mean, you have your 2 children's books, which will help our kiddies do a little bit better because, sometimes when the parents are at that stressed mode, we're not really helping. And then, of course, you have your Everyday Lessons Every Day. Where can we find these so we can purchase them?
Well, everything is self-published. It's all available on Amazon, of course. Also, I have websites for each of them. So there is an everydaylessonseveryday.com, and it has my podcast. So I've continued the journey with podcasts, and this year I started inviting guests, and they get to share their everyday lessons. So that's really fun for me. And then, of course, there's a DJ'sOffroadAdventures.com website where I sell the 2 books. I sell the books at a discount for retailers who want to carry them. I sell stickers and T-shirts. So all that stuff is available. And anytime you ever want to find me, you can just Google David McBee. And because I've been in the internet marketing space for 20 years, it's pretty much
know
on
the
search
tricks
for my name. Yeah.
Good for you. I think it takes a lot of businesses time to brand themselves and get up there, but you certainly have done a lot in your life. You are helping a lot of people with just verbalizing and putting on paper everything you've gotten out of your adrenaline junkiness. So thank you, because I'm never getting up there and off-roading, and I'm never going to bungee jump. So I need to live vicariously through you.
Yeah, but there's something that scares you, isn't there? Something that you've wanted to do that scares you?
Oh, we all have a bucket list, right?
Is there anything I can say to encourage you to change those feelings of anxiety into feelings of excitement and try to get over the hump yourself?
Well, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to give me the best lesson you've ever learned.
Related to anything?
Anything. Best advice piece you could give to someone, myself or my listeners or anything out there.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
I like that one.
And it's all small stuff.
Everything's temporary,
really
right?
is.
That's what my husband tells me. Everything's temporary.
Yeah, or, it's not going to matter in 5 years, or it's meant to be. Even the worst thing that could possibly happen, right? Like, my mother-in-law passed away of cancer a couple of years ago, right? And it was tragic to see her go through that and to lose her. But she wouldn't want us to, fret about it. She was brave. She wanted us to be brave. For her, it was, live your life. Go on. Don't sweat this, right? This is part of the natural progression of my life and the end of my life, but don't sweat it. Just be happy I'm still here. Enjoy me now, and let's get through this together, So don't sweat the small stuff, for me, kind of applies to everything, and it can make a world of difference. I've been really, really tempted to get "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff" just tattooed on the inside of my arm and constantly reminding.
Well, it's very good advice, and thank you so much for being with us today. We greatly appreciate the motivation, and if anyone is looking for David McBee, very simple, David McBee, McBee. Well, hopefully, sir, we cross paths again, and that'll be number 4. So take care. It's a small world.
So much.
I appreciate the chat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
So keep it locked right here. We have more coming up. Another children's book author who has gone to the silver screen. So keep it locked right here on AM 690, FM 94.3, The Answer.
We'll be right back with more answers and tips on how you can play it safe as we strive for a happier and healthier Hawaii.